Welcome, not back, to homeschool. Welcome to your first homeschool year. How many years have you been homeschooling? I'm going into my 14th year. 2 years before I did a lot of research. So I think of myself as having homeschooled for 15 years, but now I'm entering my official 14th year. And this year is a whole lot different than any other year, but I'll get to that in a few moments. I have my poolside development drink, and you will notice that it's empty because I actually recorded this entire video in the last hour and something happened so that it did not record. So I may go through this at lightning speeds compared to what I did last time. Anyways, poolside development drink. I can't actually drink alongside my afternoon reading because the smoke that rolled in from the West Coast in the last few days is so heavy, so thick, so off the charts for unhealthy that I'm not going outside to breathe. I've already got breathing issues, so this will definitely compound it. Disappointing, but I'm always going to read, so I'll read inside instead. And conveniently, I am only a few chapters away from finishing my last summer read. So, guess the seasons are changing and is totally accurate in my experience. The new year feels like it begins around now and not in January. So welcome back to homeschool. Tell me about your homeschool, who you are homeschooling this year. I wanted to do a show and tell for you of my new homeschool planner. Unlike any other year before, I only purchased this planner about a week ago. I am a whole lot less planned than I've ever been, or I am a lot more comfortable doing my planning than I've ever been. I finally found this resource in my own country because I've been purchasing it from the United States, having it shipped in at great cost, but now there is a supplier in Canada, I am so thankful, that offers this planner. It is called The Well Planned Day by Rebecca Ferris. Here's why I have been ordering this in at great cost over the last few years. It includes everything that I need to organize my days. It only allows you 4 children. So I think that's like the homeschool industry average anyways. I know there's families of 13 kids. I know there's families of 1 kid. I even know some people that are mentally planning for homeschooling before they've had a child. Yep, but really have met that family. This is my homeschool planner for my oldest child, who is in grade 12 this year, and you will notice that there's almost nothing written on this page right now because I have not finished my planning. This is the side, I use colored markers for each child, and this year my oldest at home is getting a light green, and those are her extracurriculars from Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday are somewhere else. But this gal is 17. She's very organized. She's very much acting like a college student at home, so it doesn't really feel like I'm homeschooling her. And she is, she's got her own day timer. She's got her own schedule. She follows it more detailed or more focused than I do, and gets up earlier than I do, has even been taking the dog for a walk and opening the chicken coop before I'm up. So this kiddo is very organized. I'm not too concerned about her. I get her to write down what she does each day and how much time she spends in each different area so that I can write down the number of hours to write into her high school portfolio at the end of the year. And she does all of that, so I don't have to put a lot of effort into it myself. My second daughter at home, because my very oldest daughter is at university in Ottawa and is going into her second year, so she is definitely out of my day timer now, not out of my heart. So this is my third daughter, really, but my second daughter at home right now is 15, and I also don't have a lot written on her. Her schedule, she's purple this year because she is in a brick and mortar school, and they are doing things quite differently this year than any other year, said pretty much everybody, right? They are taking a class every 5 weeks, and this time she's literally never been to school before. She's not even gone to kindergarten or preschool, and so she is going into a foods class which I find intriguing because as homeschooled kids, we learn how to cook early and often. But anyways, she is enjoying that process. So I am not having to write down as much detail for her this year. But I will share a little bit more later about my 11-year-old, my son, who is in grade 7 this year. And I have written all sorts of different ideas that I have for him in all these different subject categories, which I encourage you to think as learning opportunities, not school subjects. But in each of these different school subjects or learning opportunities, I write different ideas of what he and I have talked about he might be interested in doing, or different things that I kind of hope that he'll approach or engage. And sometimes I'm doing it with strewing, and sometimes I'm just matter-of-factly saying, hey, let's talk about, cursive. There's something that for the first month I said, can we just do a little bit of cursive practice? That's considered a controversial discussion in education nowadays. I don't think it is, because simple reason, people are still writing in cursive, so I want my child to actually read in cursive. And I also am a writer, always have been a writer, and I really don't think it's disappearing off the face of the earth. So we're going to do a little bit of practice in that. There's a variety of things that I think are kind of important, and sometimes I write all this stuff down just so I know that I care about my child, I think about my child, I engage my child, and then I have to practice trusting his approach to learning and his interests as well. I share a whole bunch more on that discussion in my course, How to Homeschool 101. Instead of creating school subjects or recreating school subjects or recreating school at home or trying to pretend to be a teacher, a classroom teacher, instead of the homeschool mom facilitator that I actually am, I talk about all sorts of things like that in my How to Homeschool 101 course that you can find on my Facebook page, Homeschool Mama Self-Care. So back to my planner. Presently, he doesn't have a lot on his schedule, and part of that is because some of the activities he normally does don't start until a month from now, and partly because he's not as motivated as I am to get him into as many activities as his older sisters have been involved in. So that's a discussion also for another time. There are monthly glances of in this day timer so that I can actually look month at a glance, which is super helpful. There are discussions of organization every month, so like an article before you get started for each new month plan. There's a place to write down projects that you might be doing with your children, a place to write down monthly chores for your kids, or we do weekly chores, household needs, places to organize household. There is a place for field trips, for the specific reading lists that different kids have and where to write that in. There's a place for us even to include read alouds. You can see why I really like this as a homeschool mom. And a place where you can write monthly educational goals. At the very back of this journal, or this day timer, there are 4 laminated report cards. And though I think that's cool and a neat resource, I'm very curious how many people actually use that. I know we all homeschool differently, but I have actually done it, not because I wanted to, but because my kids asked me to write them a report card. So I did, and I think I've even had a couple kids ask me over the years to test them and to give them grades, and so I did. But as a homeschool mom, if you've been around this long enough, you know that you know how they're approaching things and how they're engaging things, and your goal usually isn't about what your percentage is in a certain class or how much you understood in a certain class. It's either mastery, if it's like certain math concepts, or they just don't understand something, then you just sit with it until they do, or you expect that they will gradually grow into it and understand something. And anyways, there's a big discussion in that, isn't there? So inside this report card, you can see that there's a place for events and enrichment activities, an attendance record, literature that's completed, and all the different academics and school subjects. So depends on how you use your day timer, how you organize your year, but I don't typically do report cards. The only thing in this day timer that I do not understand would be included is an attendance record. I don't get that. There aren't a lot of kids skipping classes in homeschool. Maybe there's like specific states or provinces that require a certain number of hours of instructional time. Maybe that's the point of it. Otherwise, I am very keenly aware if someone showed up to their homeschool day, hey? So that is my day timer. This year I'm doing something different with it. I am including my own work, my coaching, writing, podcasting, scheduling, information, all in my day timer. I'm trying to find a place to do that. It's not included in that, although I think it'd be super cool to have a working homeschool mom's planner as well. Maybe someone can tell me if that already exists, or if the well-planned day wants to include that in one aspect of their day timers. So that is my show and tell. Okay. So this week in my Monday SelfCare Strategy newsletter, I asked the question, what is one fun activity, a new activity that you are trying this homeschool year? And Texas Mom 316 says she has a grade 1 daughter who loves bugs, so they are raising butterflies, bugs, and building an ant farm this year. That is so cool, except for the ants. I think I've got enough ants in my chicken coop or my chicken run and my fruit orchard that I don't need anymore. But I think it's super cool that a grade 1 child has the opportunity to explore bugs, to grow bugs in her own backyard. We have done that ourselves twice. Once even this year, painted butterflies. We had so much more time in spring, right? So if you're interested in getting self-care strategies and tools directly into your inbox, you can sign up for pretty much anything on my blog, capturingthecharmlife.com, and you will receive a self-care strategy newsletter for homeschool mamas. Frequently asked question. Okay, so this week I have released 2 podcast episodes. One is with a homeschool mom from Florida. Linda is her name, and her Instagram and Facebook page names are Homeschool Fun with Linda, and she really is fun, and she has fabulous opportunities for poolside development because she lives in Florida, and she's presently homeschooling her 9-year-old son. She and I had a really cool conversation about a whole bunch of things, as always happens when I'm chatting with someone. But the conversation centered around losing the guilt of not always doing everything for your family. She had a specific scenario in the last couple months where she was isolated for 3 weeks from her son and her husband because of COVID, because she had a case of COVID and was very ill. So she couldn't even see her son. She couldn't do all the normal household, homeschool activities that she does, and she felt guilty, as one does when one is a mom and not doing all the normal stuff that one believes one must do, and that the whole world will fall down around her if she doesn't. Can you guess what happened? She shares the details of her story on my podcast, episode number 17. And number 18 was released today. And I had a chat with a gal named Rachel Lee, who is an unschooling mom of 3 kids in Ottawa, Canada. And what an interesting lady she is. I met her on an Unschooling Canada Facebook thread. And she actually joined me for one of these Zoom chats. And it said Rachel joined. And I thought, my daughter's name is Rachel, one of my girls. So I just thought, So my daughter Rachel is like spying on me. She's got her own YouTube channel. So I thought, well, maybe she's just checking me out. So I was like kind of focusing this entire Zoom chat towards my daughter, assuming that it was her that was listening. And then I found out, no, it's actually a real human being that's named Rachel. And so her and I got into a chat on that Zoom chat and later online, and discovered that she is a devout follower of unschooling and has some really wise tidbits to share, both about wanting to trust her children, to learn, allowing them to become the people they were meant to be, and allow them to have a voice that she felt she didn't have when she was younger. And also about exploring their interests and not being worried in a schoolish kind of way of whether they're approaching their learning in the way that is conventional. And also how she incorporates her own self-care or time for herself, developing her own sense of person outside of homeschool mom as an unschooling mom, which, if you've ever sampled unschooling, it sounds like it would be like the easier way to approach things, but in a lot of ways, you're way more on with your kids because you're way more aware of, you're wanting to always respond to whatever it is they need to have facilitated. Whereas you could, in a school at home approach, if it wasn't so intense, you could just like go from 9 to 3 and say, okay, at 3, I'm done, I'm out, I'm like going to go do my own thing because now I need a break. And whereas an unschooled experience, it's not like that. You're engaging your child in a very fluid, continual way. So how does she get her own time by herself? What does she do for herself? And how does she develop her own identity outside of homeschool mom identity? Both conversations really interesting. I love podcasting. I did not realize how much I love podcasting. I will tell you the dirty little secret that I only started podcasting because it sounded like a great way to have a chat with Judy Bogart for an hour. I am waiting to organize that, or waiting for an email back to find out when it will work for her and I to have a chat, but I'll tell you the truth. I did that whole thing. I set up the whole thing. I've been doing all these edits. I've been doing all this work, and it is a lot of work to release podcast episodes so I could fangirl over my favorite homeschool coach ever, Judy Bogart. But I'm loving it. I love homeschool podcasting. I love podcasting. I love chatting with people. It's why I opened a bed and breakfast last summer. I love hanging out with people. And when people say, ooh, I couldn't do a podcast, too nerve-wracking. I'm too nervous to be in front of people. I'm like, okay, so it's me. I say that even if they don't know me because I'm like, it's me. I'm normal. I'm just typical homeschool mom. And I really am. And I could literally talk with anyone for an hour, which I also literally could do. And if you know me, 'tis true. So what did I want to share with you? I wanted to share with you how we are structuring this year for homeschooling. So you already know that my oldest daughter at home is pretty much independent. And so my whole goal with her is to help her get her driver's license in a couple weeks, so that she can drive herself to all these extracurricular activities that she's doing pretty much every day. She's got a job, a part-time job. She's got a ton of ballet classes and, all the friend kind of activities. And pretty sure there's more. But she's got all these different activities. And during the day, she's very scheduled, very faithful to her work. So I'm not having to really be concerned about her unless she asks me directly. And then my second daughter, I just have to bring her to the bus and pick her up from the bus, which I should be doing in a half an hour, so remind me. And she's independent now, or mostly. Anyways, we'll figure that out as time goes by here. And my son, my youngest, is in his grade 7 year. He's 11, and he is a prolific reader. He loves to read. He loves history. He loves doing science lab type activities at home, and he loves being my sidekick. He is just a really easy learner, unlike the stereotype of boy versus girl. I had 3 girls, then a boy, and everybody said, well, he's going to be your busiest. Not so. That was my oldest daughter, who is in university 2nd year. And they also said that he would be the latest to read, which was true, except he was 6. And he is a prolific reader and reads more than any of the other kids. And he really isn't that difficult to engage in learning activities. So it's kind of an easier year this year for me. Kind of wistful, I'll tell you that. I don't like it. Putting a child on the bus to go to school, that is a challenge in itself, and definitely an entire video in itself. But that's the 2nd time I've done that, because my oldest child has done it too. So she christened me into that. And so we've done that with her. And, you know, I kind of miss her charming, warm energy around the house. And it's different. Every year is different. And that is how it always is. You think that it will always be the same, and they will always be this cute and this small. This was literally our first day of homeschool, one July morning. Yes, I said July. And then they grow up, and this was just from, I think, 3 years ago, and they look pretty grown up right there, but they're a whole lot more grown up now. It just keeps changing, so I'm kind of wistful, right? But it's part of what was meant to be. They're meant to grow up, apparently, and leave. That's a thing, and I will have to accept that. Everything changes every year. Sometimes it's small little shifts, and sometimes it's big shifts. So I have a course, How to Homeschool 101 course, a free mini course available so that you can get to know me and get to know my approach, my perspective on encouraging you to begin your homeschool. But my ultimate goal is not really to provide an approach to how to do the homeschooling or to choose your philosophy, because you're you and you have your unique educational experience, you have your natural values, your biases, you have your specific children that are very different from me or my children. And so what I really want to do is encourage you in gaining clarity, confidence, and a vision for your homeschool. And I believe that anybody that wants to homeschool can homeschool. I said this on a CBC radio interview not that long ago, that all you need is a library card and the ability to read, and you're golden. And then I realized I probably shouldn't say that quite so boldly. The producer said that I was outspoken. And I'm like, outspoken, really? It's like grade 6. I was really shy. But that was grade 6. And I genuinely believe what I just said, that if you can read, if you have a library card, and you want to homeschool your child, you can. So I have that mini course available for you, and you can find it also on the top of my Facebook page, Homeschool Mama Self-Care. I am going to share a book room review. I'll tell you, I was planning to share with you a different book today, but I cannot get away from discussing the book that I read last week because it is that good. It is Parenting with Patience by Judy Arnall. And I think this book should have been given to me 15 years ago. Or no, 19. My oldest is 19. Patience. It's that thing that when I say, yeah, I'm a homeschool mom, and in public, the random public person will say, ooh, I couldn't homeschool. I'm not patient enough. And I'm like, is that a prerequisite? Because my kids and my husband know, me neither. I'm not either. And I've been practicing it for a while. But if I've learned anything about patience, it's not about patience. It's about actually understanding someone in front of you. So the goal is to listen. The goal is to understand. But if you have had any frustration with any of your children in any form or fashion, or if you sense that this homeschool thing might mean that you might experience it on the regular, then I recommend this book, because when she says turn frustration into connection with 3 easy steps, she really does go through the steps. And she goes through all the ages and stages of kids. And she is replete with both data or statistics and loads of encouragement, because she is the homeschool mom of 5 kids. She is a certified family life educator, a distinguished Toastmaster interactive keynote speaker, and she specializes in child development, in non-punitive parenting and education practices that enhance family relationships. And she is also my next podcast interviewer or podcast guest. But how can I not share just a little tidbit from this book? Because this is such a great book. It's such an encouraging book. So I am going to share. Do you know how much stuff I have underlined in here? Okay. How to decide which one, right? When I shared about this book in the morning and it didn't record, I had a very specific passage that I just thought was amazing. Points to remember in the heat of the moment. It is just a stage. All children go through stages when their behavior might be hard to deal with. It will pass shortly. Doing nothing about it means they will get through still and come out a decent person still. They won't go down the path of a slippery slope. It's not about you. Ooh, I need that reminder in the moment. It's not about you. It's all about where they are at. Remember her age. It takes 18 years of childhood to get it right. In fact, like, who gets it right? Your child has genuine feelings right now, and her behavior is how she copes with her feelings. It's not about trying to bug you. It's about her. She can't help how she's feeling. Look on the brighter side. Someday you will laugh about this or tell your friends about it, maybe even write about it. I think I might have to ask my kids' permission before I write anymore. When I take photos of my kids, one of my kids will say, "Oh, look, you've got more stock photos for your blog." I'm like, "No, honey, I just want to remember this moment." It's actually both. But I mostly want to remember this moment because, like I said, time passes by quickly and things change quickly. Once a week, Mondays usually, I send out a SelfCare Strategy newsletter for homeschool mamas. My goal is to encourage homeschool mamas and give you skills, techniques, tools that you can use in your practical day-to-day homeschool life. This week, I lifted the words right out of Judy Bogart's books and shared a little bit from her. My goal is to homeschool coach. My goal is to be an encouragement to you and to help you turn your challenges into your charms. And I have a lot to offer, and I know that. And I have a lot of experience, and I have the natural personality approach or the skill of listening. And I like listening, and I like people, and I want to encourage people. And at the same time, Judy Bogart has taught me a lot about how to do the homeschool thing, how to be an engaged parent, how to understand my kids. She is the senior homeschool coach for sure. She's got her own homeschool coaching community. She's got a podcast. She has a writing program or writing online business called Brave Writer. She has an amazing book called The Brave Learner. And she is one of my 3 great J's in the homeschool world. I'm going to say 4 with Judy now. But Judy Bogart, John Taylor Gatto, and John Holt are always the 3 great J's that I've talked about that have been really encouraging for me in my homeschool journey. And so I can't not share with you the words of Judy Bogart about the principles for homeschool sanity. It's usually in the 2nd or 3rd week when you start to get a whiff of this homeschool thing, when you start to realize this might be more, you might have bitten off more than you thought you were going to. Yep. So this is what she shares, her encouraging words for homeschool sanity. 5 principles. No 2 years of homeschooling are ever the same. Your children get older and change grades. Each child has a unique personality. What worked with one won't necessarily work with the next. 2, you get bored. Just because a curriculum is effective for one child does not mean that you need to keep using it if you're bored or if your child doesn't care about it. 3, you can't solve homeschooling. There's no philosophy or practice that you can adopt perfectly enough to end your quest to get it right. You'll re-examine and adapt and readapt and readapt every year. 4, real life intrudes. Cancer, pregnancy, foreclosure, hurricanes and fires, elderly parents, death, special needs, divorce, job transfers, military deployments. There's no escape. The years when crisis hits, homeschool will take a back seat. Don't worry, it's flexible enough to accommodate. And 5, my favorite, a pretty good homeschool is good enough. No matter which philosophy you adopt, as structured as classical education or as unstructured as unschooling, you are human. Your ability to put that philosophy into action is limited. You'll have great stretches of imagination and flow and others where you wonder if anyone is learning anything. Your aim is not perfection, but peace and progress. That is good enough. Such good advice for this homeschool year. And ain't that true? Things are always changing. No 2 years are ever the same. Sigh. So take it all in, the mess, the beauty, the challenges, and the charms. Beautiful words. I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret about my podcast. The whole reason that I even started that podcast was because Judy Bogart agreed to an interview with me. Yes, I put that much work in. I think I'm on episode 18 released today, and I'm expecting to have an interview with her within this month, and it was all because I was fangirling over Judy Bogart. And by the way, I love it. Did I tell you that? I love podcasting. It's like a homeschool mom socialization tool. And I love learning from new parents or mostly new homeschool moms at this point. And I love learning. And there's not one person I don't learn from. And I'm making fast friends doing it as well. Love it. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to share with you is the fundamental self-care strategy that I think we homeschool moms need to incorporate on the regular, especially if it feels like in the first few weeks things are getting already out of sanity, that we're kind of losing it on the regular, or it feels really uncomfortable, or you're not quite sure about this. This is what I'll suggest. Put a timer on or an alarm on your phone or on an alarm clock. This is an idea that I got from a podcast guest, also another homeschool coach across the country. And she said that if you just give yourself a timer. She took this from somebody else actually too. So we're always like borrowing and reusing ideas, but this is such a great strategy. So remind yourself maybe once an hour if you really need it. Give yourself an alarm maybe once every few hours, once a day. But that alarm goes off, you recognize that sound, and you sit, you be quiet, you take 3 really deep breaths. And hold it and release. You do that over the course of a few minutes, and you ask yourself this question: where am I at? How am I feeling? What's going on? What am I thinking about? Where are my thoughts? How are my thoughts and my feelings connected? Where am I at? When you can regularly assess how you feel, then you can learn to question those feelings. Ask yourself if they're true. If you know for sure, without a doubt, they're 100% true, that you're feeling that feeling for the right reason, or maybe there's an alternate perspective to what you're experiencing right now. You not only identify what your emotional challenges are as you're a homeschooling mom, but you're also able to sit with it and begin to understand yourself as to why you're feeling what you're feeling, what your struggle is. Write it down if you want to. Speak into the mirror in the bathroom. Don't lock the door, because kids know you're in there if you're locking the door. And if you're locking the door, you can guarantee that someone's coming to the door to knock. So leave the door open. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, how are you doing? Why are you feeling what you're feeling? What are the thoughts that are fueling the feelings? What are possible alternate perspectives to how you're feeling? Then you get to decide how you want to approach the struggle or the challenge that you're experiencing, if you're experiencing one. You get to decide how you're going to frame it. You get to decide how you're going to respond to it. When you go through this process enough, you're never done, by the way. There's no point where it stops, where you can't learn from this process. But you're being still. You're able to identify how you're feeling, why you're feeling what you're feeling, and then you're deciding how you're going to engage something rather than just reacting. I wish I could share with you more about all the different unique aspects of this, but there's so many different feelings that each of us homeschool moms have. We're humans, so we're having all sorts of different feelings. I personally address perfectionism, the not good enough feeling, doubt, the feeling of failure, the feeling of frustration or anger, the feeling of loneliness, or the feeling of, there's so many that I've addressed in the book. But once a week for the next little while on these Let's Chat All Things Homeschooling, I am going to tackle a different concern or challenge every week. I look forward to hearing from you what you are most challenged by, because I want to help you turn that challenge into your charm. I know that especially in the first few weeks of pretty much any homeschool year, but definitely the first homeschool year, there are a lot of surprises. Things that we learn about our kids, things that we're learning about ourselves, and we have to alter our expectations. We have to learn to reframe our uncomfortable feelings or thoughts. So I look forward to hearing from you the specifics of what you are dealing with or what your challenge is right now. Well, I think I have pretty much hit everything I wanted to share with you today. So if you are interested in learning more about my Homeschool Mama Self-Care book, I have a preview on my Homeschool Mama Self-Care page on Facebook. You can check that out today, and let me know if there's anything that I can do to help. Until then, I hope that you and your kids have a charmed week, and that you, homeschool mama, can turn your homeschool challenges into your homeschool charms. Thanks for joining me.